Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. What are you supposed to do with their stuff? This is a commonly asked question and a question we want to address today in this episode. When you're stuck with all of your ex's stuff, or some of it. Welcome, Mum.
Hello, Laura. Hi, everyone.
Now, it's a bit of a weird episode because we're talking about stuff, and usually we're talking about much more important things. But today, it's more not about the stuff value. It's more about how annoying the stuff is. A lot of people are so frustrated by their ex's stuff being around. And these days, Mum, stuff does cost you money because it takes up space, and it also, a lot of the hippies in the new age world are saying that stuff zaps your energy as well. So It's a real big, painful reminder as well of your ex or your past life if their stuff is just everywhere.
Yeah.
So today I really would like to go through with you what people can do about it just after separation, during the divorce, or even after court's over. But also we're going to talk about it, how to deal with their stuff based on whether it's amicable, manipulative, controlling, avoidant, or high conflict. So, Mum, we do get this question a lot. Do you deal with this a lot?
I do. I think all of my clients have asked these things over the years. And, I did some research leading up to the podcast today, just see if there are any cases about people's stuff. And there aren't any really reported cases about stuff because the court doesn't do furniture fights. And even if the big stuff is sorted out say you do get an order that one of you is going to keep one of my favorites years ago was the waterbed. One of you is going to keep the waterbed. And, you divide up the big stuff, the desk and the sofas and that. There's always a certain amount of detritus and junk left after they take their big things.
What about because forget furniture. I'm talking about the things that people are complaining about is the garage full of just crap. Or, like someone's postcard collection or tea towel collection or even just like their clothes in the cupboard. Some people, when they separate, they leave and it's a big immediate axe to the whole situation, and then they never go back and all their stuff is left behind like a time capsule. Yeah. Other people take their stuff, but even when you move and you're not breaking up, you find things from years ago at the bottom of a cupboard that you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I guess people do worry though, Mum, because you think you could legally get in trouble for a lot of this if you do the wrong thing. And I do see a lot of manipulative and controlling situations where the ex leaves their stuff there on purpose in a way. Yeah. Sometimes I don't think they realize they're doing it on purpose so that they can say, oh, can I please have my baseball card from 1962 because I want to do this? And those, or can I have a copy of the recipe that grandma something gave to me 5 years ago? So that person is constantly on call to someone like a personal assistant getting their stuff.
You're right. They're like museum custodian with all of the stuff. Yeah, you do have to bring that to an end. And I'm certain there is a lot of stuff left after final orders are made in people's houses, and it's a dilemma. So I think you treat it differently, Laura, before you would be in court compared to after the orders have been made.
Gotcha.
Because before the orders are made, what you do with these things can form part of a narrative about you, even in parenting matters, that, that you're restless and overbearing and, all the things I say about women when we try to do our own thing.
So the stereotypical thing you see in movies of people doing things with people's stuff is they throw it out the balcony bit by bit onto the front lawn and sometimes set it on fire. Is that something you recommend?
No. Again, like I said, that forms part of a narrative, doesn't it, about you? And there's property loss there. And it might not just be in terms of the family court, but, it might be a thing that the police might be interested in, as destruction of property or stealing of property if you won't hand it over. So,
right.
and everyone who's listening to this, they may have at some time had their stuff at someone else's place, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sort of seeps out of the realm of family court and it can become part of a domestic violence situation,
right.
the subject of an allegation for DV claims. So you've got to be so careful.
So basically what you're saying is even though there's no legal case or law case about people's stuff that's below furniture that has no value, basically, you're saying legally though, it could be what you do with it used for domestic violence, coercive control or criminal court matters for whatever.
Or as an attitude that if the children stay with you, you're going to be, aggressive and anti the other parent. So I've been asked this question thousands of times. And every time the answer is nuanced and depends on a person's situation.
Okay. So let's do some examples then.
Okay.
Let's do some examples. All right. So let's just go with avoidant to start with. Let's say they've broken up. One of them's staying in the house. The other person's moved on to another place. They haven't had mediation. They haven't had court. But the person who's staying in the house has listened to our podcast and wants to set up the place to be more them, to start a new world.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do they do with all their stuff?
I think there's no harm in boxing it up and putting it in a shed or in a room that you don't use much. That gets it out of your sight and you can put all your pink things out or whatever it is you want to decorate with. That doesn't, though, solve the problem of that other person wanting to can I come through and get this out of my box or that out of the box? So getting it out of your sight is the first stage. What you do with it is the second stage. And avoidants are classic at leaving it there. It's like if their stuff's still there, then the marriage isn't over. There's a finality about it. So there are a number of things people do with that sort of situation. If you can't bear it in the house or they're using it as a wedge to get into the house, or worse, I've heard of a case where kids were told to get things for their father. So it's just still all very present. If you can't get it out into a shed or a garage, dry and safe, think about giving your avoidant X a deadline for collecting the stuff. And then you have to have an or else, right? So you give a reasonable deadline because this correspondence may end up attached to an affidavit. Give them a reasonable deadline to take their stuff. And if not, then tell them what you're going to do with it, right? And it might be it goes into a storage unit, but that costs money, and an avoidant person may not actually ever get them out of there. So it's just becomes someone else's problem. A better way for an avoidant person that I have had clients use with success is to call their mother or drop the stuff over to their mums or their sisters or, someone else who's got a big shed, a friend, and just tell them where it is. That's another way.
You don't just turn up on the mum's doorstep and go, here, I've got all your stuff.
Now, you'd only need to do that step with all the stuff, getting it completely out, if you're going to stay in the house. If you sell the house, well, you've already boxed up his stuff. Where do you want it? And deliver it to get it, come and get it, or I'll take it somewhere else. At a point where the house is being sold and everyone has to take their stuff, your stuff is crap. The court would expect then that there needs to be a clearing out of the house. So,
right.
Yeah. And I don't think the court's evolved enough to recognize the distress that a person leaving her stuff in the house could cause a person, really.
Well, we do get a lot of people with that drama of, so they've got it out of their sight, they've boxed it up, but they're selling the house, there's the settlement happening and the house keys need to be handed over, but their stuff's still sitting there and they'll go, what are we supposed to do with this? And you're saying, try and do deadlines, putting it in a storage shed. Mm-hmm. But if you're paying fees, be prepared that you may have to continue paying fees because they might be painful. But can a court get involved then?
I think the court would appoint one person to be the person who's selling and then make those decisions. Do you know what else you could do, particularly if it's big stuff, is tell the other person that if they don't pick it up by this time, you're going to list it on eBay or Facebook Marketplace and give them the cash for it, or split the cash with them. Because remember,
putting stuff on eBay is a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You're going to just do it for them and give them the cash. Yeah. I'd be loving that. But if it's just avoidant and they're not angry with you, they just can't deal, that is an option, I guess. What you're saying is, so far what we've got up to is get it out of your sight is your first step. And that may help you and your children, if they're doing shared arrangement, to understand that the world's moved and changed.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're living in your past house, in your past life with the past stuff, and it is harder to deal with.
Yes.
So get it out of your sight, pack it up.
I just want to clarify that his stuff, her stuff, their stuff, your stuff. In family law, everything is up for grabs, so to speak. So all of your property belonging to either of you or both of you is up for the court to be able to make orders about and move the ownership of the property. It's not really their stuff. I'm thinking the stuff that's their stuff is...
I'm talking about like their football trophies or that, their old school photos and things like that. That is their stuff. You've got to remember, and that's important, Mum, important note for everybody, just because they bought that piece of furniture doesn't make it their piece of furniture, because in the marriage or in your relationship, everything is looked at as part of the property pool. But we're talking about football trophies or ballerina medals or whatever it is, certificates from primary school or drawings they did as kids.
Or hobbies.
Stuff that obviously is their stuff, that it's not yours. So number one is box it up and get it out of your sight. Number two, you reach out to them if they're avoidant or amicable, or I think you reach out to any of them and say, hey, I would like you to come and collect your stuff. Here's your deadline and please come along. When you do that, Mum, before we go on about listing it on eBay and the other thing, what if they are manipulative, controlling or high conflict and there may be like a DV situation? Do you want them to come to the house to get their stuff? Is there a thing you can do so you're safe for them to get their stuff?
So in the ACT, I've done this, and that is you call the police. And it should work if there's high conflict or you've got an order against the other person. Call the police. Tell them the time and date that this person's going to collect the stuff, put it out, and then, have a friend with you. You don't want to be accused of family violence inside. And they will just, like if the police have got capacity, what they did for my client, where there was actually furniture, antiques that did belong to people. So they had to go into the house, the removalists had to go into the house. So my client had a friend with him. He called the police. They came and kept the peace, and he videoed, on my advice, everything that went out of the house and went with the person. Some people as a couple are really into their things, and other people are, I don't think hippie was a good word with respect. Minimalism. Some of them don't want the stuff.
So if you can get them to take their stuff, but it's a situation where either you're going to be accused of DV or you're worried there could be an incident when they come to get their stuff, you can have the police, you can go to the police station, talk to them about it and see if they'll be present or be available to turn up at short notice while someone collects their stuff. And maybe if it's a high conflict situation, get a friend or a relative to go and be there for the moment, and you don't have to be there then. But just make sure they don't take things that you don't want them to take, I guess. But that's another drama.
And that's what happened. There were, so I got a call to say that the person, the woman, was taking something that actually wasn't on the agreed list that we had for her to take. And the police were there going, I don't know.
That's why you say, pack it all up and put it out on the front yard and just keep the door locked. Don't let them in the house.
No, unless you have to. And video yourself packing it up. I mean, videos just sort out a lot of issues. Yes, so in that one, my advice at the time was, for goodness sake, it's the last thing in your whole property settlement. It's only worth this much. I'll bet you could buy another one. Let it go. So... And he found that very hard. But I got a call out of the blue from him about a year later to thank me for being clear with that he realized how well he'd got out of it and he's moved on with his life. And it was much too important to be free, have it sabotaged by a small piece of uniquely antique furniture. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I know how hard it could be. I can imagine, because the last thing you want them to do is be taking more than what they're supposed to get, and it would feel unfair and all of that. So I get it. You've got it out of your sight.
Yeah.
You've given them a deadline. You've got the police to come.
If you can. Yeah.
If they don't come and get it, if they're being really poopy bum about it, you're saying the or else is I listed on eBay and we split the cash, which is a lot of effort.
Or I keep
any other option.
Yeah. Or I keep it and I'll give it to the kids when they're older. Your football trophies, your, memorabilia. It's
stuff is so annoying, Mum. Do you have to?
I know, darling, I know. But you've got to keep your eye on this big picture. Okay. So if you're more at risk, a person is hardly ever criticized for not going and getting their stuff. But a person can be criticized in court as a reflection on their character if they've just did very high-handedly and got rid of the stuff, because the other person will go, I was going to get it. I was only couch surfing. I was only in a flat. I was going to get it when it was fine. And now they've sold it or destroyed it. So whatever you do, don't do anything permanent with it until after the court orders. And do you know why? Because final court orders, they'll deal with the cars and the super and maybe the house and the debts. And somewhere in your final property court orders, there will be a clause that says something like, save as aforesaid, and there you go, legal talk again. In other words, except for what we've talked about above, each party will be solely responsible for and solely own to their own benefit to the exclusion of the other any assets present, and it lists off other sorts of things, but it includes for our purposes today, furniture and things that is in their possession, power or control at the date of these orders. So that shuts the door. If you've got an order like that, then if you give them anything, it's out of the goodness of your heart. You can post certificates. You could parcel post trophies.
So basically what you're saying is, if you're the person who's stuck with the stuff, as long as you don't get tricked into doing something that looks bad because you're so frustrated because they're just manipulating you.
Yes.
Then the question is, Mum, if you've got their stuff, it's boxed up, and your ex keeps coming in, can you tell them not to? Can you say, no, you can't keep asking me for stuff. You either take it all or what? You just wait till settlement.
Yeah, that's right. And be careful giving them the things that they really love, because then they might not be inclined to take the rest. You know what I mean? So I tend to do an all or nothing with people, and I say to my clients, if she wants that, make her take everything, get it out of the house.
So basically what you're saying is just be careful with how you do it. And if you are in a manipulative and controlling situation and you're the one who's in the house with all the stuff, make sure that you're not being used basically that stuff is being used as an excuse. Because when you look at post-separation abuse, it's usually the children that are used, but stuff can be used.
Of course.
In pretty much the similar way, but not as bad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've often said that even a court case on family violence, it's just a snapshot in time. And the court seldom goes back and looks at the reason for why you did something, because you may react to 15 years of abuse. And you're right, finally he's gone or she's gone, here, I'm getting rid of this stuff once and for all. But when they go to court, they start with that step, that action. And I've not noticed anyone who is successfully able to argue that what this person did, throwing out the stuff, was reasonable because of the 15 years of issues before.
All right, so you just got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
What if it's the other way around, Mum? What if you want your stuff and you can't get it?
Well, again, give them a deadline, tell them you're going to collect it. Make sure you videoed before. This is hindsight, but if you're leaving video before you go, and I always say, take your hobbies with you, take your trophies, take your 21st birthday presents or whatever it is that's absolutely precious and irreplaceable to you if you possibly can. And if you can't, if you've had an opportunity to video it, ask for it as soon as possible, because I've seen more than once where someone's very special thing, racing bike, grandfather's desk, the answer from the other lawyers was, what bike? What bike? What desk? There's no such thing. And if you don't have any evidence of it, it just gets disappeared. So it's a bit of a trap. You've got to be holier than the other person. You've got to continue, I guess, like you've done throughout the relationship. The time to say, well, that's it, no more nice guy, is not now. Because if you're facing court and negotiations, you don't want to go to court with that to be able to use against you. Or if you are too radical with what you do with this stuff, you may not be able to negotiate a peaceful solution with an avoidant or even an amicable person if they bear that grudge. So it's just a delicate dance.
So when it comes to mediation, Mum, so let's go to the next bit. You're at mediation now, and you're like, still have all the stuff in your house in a box, or you haven't got your stuff. Can you use it as a way of saying mediation as a way to get them to give you your to give you your stuff, or for them to give their stuff? Can you use that as leverage or as part of the negotiations?
You can, honestly. The court doesn't do furniture fights. They do the 2 list things and that. But in mediation, where you are both in control of your outcome, you can put it in there. You know, you can put it in there. I've seen dog custody clauses that they put in mediation, you know, but you won't see the court doing that.
So in mediation, you can say to the mediator, one of my aims is I would really like to get some of my stuff back, or one of my aims is for him or her to come and collect all their stuff to give me a break from all of this in the house. And
what you do, you don't disclose that. Get the mediator not to tell her or him that's what you want to do, because you have exposed your Achilles heel, so to speak. And they'll go, oh, I'll only give you your stuff if you do this. It's better when sort of incidental things like that, the stuff, the crap stuff, your good stuff. It's better to put that in at the end. So say you're negotiating on a dollar figure and they come in from the other side with a figure that's like just really screwing your mind, and it's at the limit of what you can achieve or close to. You can say, I'll only agree to that if you agree to give me these things back, or I'll only agree to that if you come and get your crap. And it can become part of the order. And then And I'd put a default clause in there if you're drafting orders on the mediation, and that would be, and if they don't by this date and this time, then the property will belong to, you know.
Right. So you can say in your mediation, one of your agreement, say, I'll agree to this as long as you also agree to collect your stuff by this date. And you're saying in your consent orders, you could put such and such must collect their stuff by this, otherwise that stuff becomes the property of such and such. Right. And then if it becomes yours, you can just throw it in the bin or sell it on eBay and
no one's going to mind.
Remembering, though, that this is legal education. So Mum is your lawyer. She has no idea what your situation is. So obviously you go see a lawyer and you talk to them about these options. But it's good to know that you're not just never talking about that stuff. If it matters to you, then you need to raise it. Because I remember my baby books that I made for my children that I spent hours on. Maybe my third child's baby book wasn't as well done as the other two, because as I got more kids, I had less time to do stuff.
That's why yours is rubbish.
I know, Ma. I know. I remember looking at it as a kid going, why is mine got like 7 pages? Anyway, when I was going through the whole divorce process, obviously the baby book, scrapbooks is probably the last thing you're thinking about. But in the end, it was one of the things I was very glad to get, because it means something to me. And I know my lawyers didn't get it. I know my lawyers were like, move on, Laura, who cares? But it is important to let your lawyers know what matters to you because you're paying them. And if it matters to you and they don't get it, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be trying to get it for you in mediation. Obviously not in court, but yeah.
I think with your or else's, if you're drafting a clause and you're going to get your stuff, maybe put in that clause that in default of that being given back to you, that he owes you or she owes you an extra $2,000 or whatever. That was that figure that you were nearly at and you thought, well, I'll agree to your figure if you give me my stuff. So kind of have some self-fulfilling prophecies in the orders. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah. And the baby book thing is a good example. You know, sometimes that means a lot to one person and not enough to another.
Yes.
So they're precious things.
Okay. So that's if you're at mediation. So when it gets to court, you're in court, you're going to hearings and trials, you can still try and negotiate stuff like that, can't you? Outside of court, you just can't get a judge to order you to give the trophies back. Need to start doing your disclosure but have no idea where to start? Feeling overwhelmed about mediation coming up? Or just trying to deal with negotiating with a manipulative ex? Then you need to go to thedivorcecourse.com.au to go to the free resources section where you can get a mediation checklist, a disclosure checklist, a word salad, read a letter like a pro checklist, and also a before you go checklist. Get ahead of the game and be organised and ready, as this handy checklist, along with the accompanying episodes of the podcast, will be perfect for you. All you need to do is go to thedivorcecourse.com.au and go to the free resource section and download the free checklists today. So when it gets to court, you're in court, you're going to hearings and trials, you can still try and negotiate stuff like that, can't you? Outside of court, you just can't get a judge to order you to give the trophies back.
Generally, no, I think you can. I think the court, if it really, really matters and you're really specific, then put it in your application. Ask the court to make those orders. It can be the subject of cross-examination, and the court may, if it's not requiring the judge to do a valuing in his mind or dividing tables, chairs, furnitures, etc. These special personal things I think you can ask for. And I think with the rise of understanding of coercive control, I think that the court is going to be more attuned to people who just want their special stuff. And it's awful because a manipulative and controlling person or a high conflict person might deliberately keep the things they know will upset you.
So in court, you can negotiate that sort of stuff. And like you said, Mum, if they have done bad stuff to your stuff, or if you've done bad stuff in a throw of passion, set it on fire, or I don't know, whatever it is that you've done, that will come out in court. So that's when it will hit you in court. What happens after court? So you've got your final orders, you're splitting up your stuff. Can you get some money paid back to you if you've had to store their stuff, or if you've had to pay removalists to move their stuff, or if you've had to clean their stuff? Or can you get some sort of, here you go, here's your suffering payment for dealing with all their crap for so long?
No, I've never seen anyone do that. And bearing in mind, outrageous, but bearing in mind, trophies that we've got mean a lot to us, but the reality is they don't have much physical value. And your efforts in keeping things dusted and tidy I think will just all get lost in the wash. So when you're dealing with big stuff like hundreds of thousands of dollars in super and, that's where you get stuck. I do have one case where a person was ordered, this is a reported case, to hand a car over to the other person. And somehow they managed to get it there outside the house without a motor in it.
Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah. The court was pretty creative with that. What the court said in that case was that it is expected that things will be returned in good order.
So make sure if you are returning things, you're not vandalising them before you give them back, because that will just get a photo taken and end up in an affidavit. Yeah?
Yep, I know. Yep, I know your blood's boiling, but you have to just keep a lid on it for a little bit longer, probably like you did during the marriage or the relationship.
Wow. It sounds like we're always giving our listeners not stuff they want to hear. The term is an S sandwich, but I'm not going to say the word. But I feel like we're always giving them the stuff that they've just got to go, oh man, really?
Yeah. But isn't it better that we tell you, like I'm a straight shooter, always have been with my clients, that because the alternative is you spend all this money and end up before a judge who then tells you,
Yeah, that's true.
And I have a lot of people say, I'm not happy about that, but I understand and thank you because then I won't be flogging a dead horse, as they say, all the way up to trial. And it might be the point they're stuck on. So it's not me. I'm just telling you what the court has said and what the court does.
Okay. Mum, after court, you've got your orders. You know who's got like the house, who's got what car, you know who's going to have the kids, but there's no mention of who gets the can opener in the third drawer of the house or who gets the mower. Or so if you haven't negotiated that in mediation or if you haven't negotiated that in court, and you've got your final orders and then they're ringing you going, hey, can I have my mower or my leaf blower or, hey, can I have my Barbie collection? If it hasn't been mentioned and it's in your possession, what happens?
Well, legally it's yours, okay? And it will come under that general clause that each person keeps the assets in their possession. Because the court's been splitting people's assets now since 1976 and they've learned how to do a clean break. Yeah, and Section 81 tells them that they've got to, as far as possible, sever the financial relationship between the parties, and that includes the property.
Then it really just comes down to, there's a difference between being a nice person and setting your boundaries. And if you find that your ex is still trying to use their stuff to manipulate you after you finish court, then, set a firm boundary and just go, no, if you want, tell me the last lot of stuff you want and that's it, no more. If you're amicable, then fine, but just be aware that it can still be used as a tool. But legally, after you've got your orders, then what is what is, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. If you give it over, it's out of the goodness of your heart.
So let's talk about just a quick summary, Mum. You say, get it out of your sight. Doesn't mean it has to be off the property, but box it up. That's the first step. Put it in suitcases maybe if you don't want to buy boxes. If you've got suitcases, just be aware that they'll probably not give you the suitcases back. So don't give them all your suitcases. Make sure you keep one for yourself. So bag it all up. Try not to do it when the kids are around because you don't want them to use that against you either. And then set a deadline to try and get them to take it with an or else. Consider if it's going to look bad if you listed it on eBay, but you've got to give them warning. You've got to act responsibly. You've got to basically act like a business and imagine what a business would do and how outraged someone would be if a business just threw it all out. So you've got to be aware that everything you do leading up to court is going to be watched like a hawk.
Sometimes one of the allegations is that a person might be selling their own stuff, but they're selling it at way below value, or they're selling other person's stuff way below value. So there's much more than getting rid of it. It's, did you get rid of it for the right price? What did you do with the proceeds? So it's not a good recommendation to do Facebook and all that sort of stuff with their stuff because it could open another can of worms. But after the orders are through and the stuff's in your possession, go for gold.
Yeah, okay, so you've got to be careful.
Education only.
So you're basically, ma'am, you really are saying you just got to hold on to it. You've got to try and get them to take it, but you've got to hold on to it, which can be so frustrating. If you can afford it, go get a storage unit and put it in the storage unit so it's out of your sight. If you can't afford it, put it under the house. See if a friend will look after it for you in their shed. But and you just got to hold out until your settlement and your court or your consent orders are done. So then with avoidant, just double checking, that's going to be really hard to get them to get their stuff.
Yep.
So what are your strategies for an avoidant person?
I think you have to say to them, look, everything in my possession I'm going to keep and everything in your possession you're going to keep at the end of this. So what are the things that I've got do you need before that order is made? And just make it clear to them that ultimately your plan is I'm just going to sell it afterwards. So, if you want it, let's sort that out now. And some people sort out furniture and assets by themselves and then go to court for the big stuff, right? So just furniture and chattels. And in that case, there's usually a clause in the affidavit that the parties have resolved the chattels, the furniture and items to their satisfaction. And that's all you have to deal with. Otherwise, you're going in a lot of detail in your affidavit.
What about amicable? That you just try and sort it out once?
Mm-hmm. Sort it out while it's amicable, because it might change if they get a new partner, or it might change if they're actually a nasty person she's just pretending to be nice, or he's just pretending to be nice, but actually they're not.
There's a little quote that I think is important for anyone who's today either upset that they can't get their stuff or upset because their ex isn't taking their stuff. And it's, stuff is just stuff. Possessions can be replaced. You cannot. We cannot purchase a meaningful life. We can only live it one day at a time. And that was the minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, look, it's quite easy for us to sit here and be all preachy about it. But when it comes down to it, the crux of the issue really is it can be used as a tool for manipulation. And it can also be a reminder of a painful past or a sad past. And, you know, mentally, if you're better off not looking at it, then get it out of your sight. Whether you can get your stuff, you may, you know, mourn some things that you may never see again if you had to leave, because your safety is more important than things.
Yes. Yep.
But, Mum, you've always said, if anyone is listening to this, you've always said to people, if you are thinking of leaving and you feel like it would be unsafe, you know, start squirreling away some things to your friend. Give them your favourite teapot as a present to look after, or, you know, take your photo album to your sister's house to look at and then just leave it there by accident. You know, you can kind of deposit some of your treasures at friends' places that aren't value. It's not like you can start squirreling away diamond rings and not expect it to be put into the property pool. But it's hard because this question that you get asked a lot, it doesn't have technically a legal answer, and there is no one answer.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to a reminder about basically anything you do in your divorce journey. You need to present yourself in the best possible light. And whilst you may be going through emotional turmoil and hell, you know, doing something with their stuff may look bad, and you don't want to look bad if you ever do go to court.
Yeah, it may give you some momentary satisfaction, and it might be a step on the way to finding yourself again. However, resist it if you can, because the court has no truck with that. They won't tolerate that. And family court's a court of impression. So when you go in before a judge for the final hearing, they don't know either of you. They don't know that you are a good person. They just see two people come there, and all they've got to go on is what's in the affidavit and how you answer your questions. And so, you know, you don't want to give the other person an opportunity to attach text messages and evidence of you burning or flogging off their stuff. You know, that just doesn't help.
One more question. What is the most out-of-box way that you've ever seen someone uniquely manage to get their stuff back or get their stuff to them, to their ex?
I think one of them that I remember fondly was where person put all the other person's stuff in a trailer, which was going to be the other person's trailer. Our client didn't want it, and just drove it over to their place and then unhitched the trailer and left it out the front.
Was it like covered in a tarp, so it was safe, obviously?
Yeah. And it was covered in a tarp, and I think she told them that she was going to do it.
Yeah.
And and there it is. You know,
there you go.
You would only do that, Rose, if you're going to be the one ultimately keeping the house.
Yeah.
And there is a time when you need to deal with it, because if they're going to ever get their stuff, that needs to happen before the orders, or, you know, like you say, special
house display. You've got to,
if you're selling,
there's open houses where you basically got to act like you don't live in the house. You've got to remove all living.
What's with that? What is with that? It's become an epidemic. We bought our house. It was during COVID, and it was in the country, and there's no such nonsense out here.
Well, people at your house, Mum, left all their stuff behind. I remember you were cleaning it out for months. Anyway.
We still haven't finished.
Anyway, okay. So thank you, Mum, for that. I'm sorry if it's not what you guys wanted to hear today, but it is an important question that we get asked a lot, and unfortunately that is the answer. However, if you can go and see a lawyer, you could ask them, and because they know your individual situation, they could probably give you a more definitive direction. So be aware that there could be an answer for you. And if you can't see a lawyer, you could go and see community legal, but I wouldn't waste my community legal session talking about stuff. I would, if you can't afford to see a lawyer, use your community legal stuff for when it really matters. And I know it feels like it really matters now, but I think there are other things in your divorce process that will really matter. So thank you, Mum. Again,
you're welcome.
Any words of wisdom before we go?
I guess if you think about it, all of that stuff will end up one day in a charity shop or, out of fashion, all the stuff that you're hoping to recover. And so I think that unless it is a specific personal specific value to you, I wouldn't let the other side know really early on what it is that you want. And you can pretty well always replace anything, and it's secondhand. This stuff, you were just going to say that, were you?
Well, no, I have a unique perspective because I've been through a divorce, but two, also I've been through a flood. And we went through that big flood in 2009, 2010. And all of my stuff was boxed up because we were moving house, and I lost pretty much all of my stuff, a large portion of my stuff. And there was stuff that I lost that I don't even know what it was that I lost, but it was a lot of stuff. But it did have, after the initial mourning process of being sad because I lost all my stuff, I did have this massive feeling of freedom, massive feeling of freedom. And you may find that if you can't get your stuff, that once you get over this hurdle of not being able to get it, you may feel a massive world of freedom, a restart, a refresh as well. So if you are upset because you can't get your stuff, hold on for a little bit longer. You may feel okay. And I've been on the other side too, where I've been stuck with a lot of stuff and I was drowning in stuff and I had to pack everything up. I had to sort the house out for sale. I had to do all of that stuff. And it was a lot of work and a lot of energy put into stuff. And so both sides of the coin, I think I know which side I'd rather be on.
And as a person getting older, I'm culling stuff now that I've carried from pillar to post over, the last 30, 40 years. And I look at it and go, why have I still got that? I haven't played the guitar in 15 years. Why am I still taking it everywhere with me? And that happened with a lot of things. So I watched a lot of those minimalism videos and the less stuff you've got around, I think, the better it feels. And think about it. When you go to a hotel room or an Airbnb, you kind of feel liberated because it's not your stuff everywhere. You've just got what's in your suitcase and people respond to a clearer environment. Look, if you're mourning something that you will never get back, you think, and I don't mean to be flippant about those things, but there's a lot of stuff. Look at wedding dresses that are going into the thrift shops now. They're ones from the 70s. People must have lugged them from pillar to post for 40 years.
And the other thing is, if you are the one who's stuck with all the stuff and you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, we know that. I want to get rid of this stuff. Just remind yourself that once you get settlement, once you go through mediation, once you go through family court, whatever it is that you're doing to get your consent orders finalized or your court orders, that stuff will then be dealt with and it will feel amazing. So you will get there. You will have that freedom from their stuff, however it is that you're going to do it. Your journey will be different to everybody's, but you will get there and you'll feel amazing. So sorry we didn't have all the answers today, but hopefully this can help you a little bit. And thank you, Mum.
Thank you, Laura. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.